Hello, my name is Zachariah with Old Man Gaming, and welcome to the premiere episode of a new, hopefully, fingers crossed, weekly show called 5 Things. And now you're probably asking what 5 Things is. Well, 5 Things is going to be a fun little show we do where I ask myself, I ask community members, and I also ask the Foundation about popular video games, services, and systems, about 5 things they want to see in their next video game, in the video game that's already being updated, stuff like that. And then, as so many other YouTube channels do, I will put this recording of the 5 things over stock footage. Hey, gotta love stock footage, right? At least it's something for your eyes while you get something for your ears. So, confessions, I did not ask community members about this today, but honestly, with the exception of our relatively new community member who's been enjoying the stream, I don't think anybody else plays this one. So, I decided just to look inside myself. So, this first video is 5 things we want to see in State of Decay 3. I know this is not probably the most topical, as State of Decay 3 was announced with a short teaser trailer last year, July 23rd, and we haven't heard anything from it since. However, as some of you may know, I've been streaming quite a bit of State of Decay 2, and some of you may also know that it's one of my all-time favorite games. So with that being said, this is 5 things I want to see in State of Decay 3. And just for a heads up, there is no particular order to these 5 things. It's not like a ranking system. It's just 5 things. So, let's get it started. Number 1, first thing I would like to see is multiplayer communities. Okay, so what is multiplayer communities? Well, right now, the way State of Decay 2 works, if you're a complete layman, is you procedurally generate some characters, then you go into a map, and you have to scrounge for your survival. You've got to find food, you've got to find water, you've got to find meds, you got to fight off zombies, you've got to find a home and set up a base, and then you've got to find other survivors and bring them into your community while building more parts of the community on to help you fight the zombies and, some other communities and stuff like that. Basically, the idea of the game is then you take on 10 plague hearts to reduce the zombie horde. Then you do some sort of end game thing for whatever leader you chose for your community out of your procedurally generated characters. Now this is all cool, but one thing that sucks about State of Decay 2 is even though there is multiplayer, the multiplayer is basically you could take one of your survivors into your friends, or he can take one into yours, but they can't really die and they'll end up back with the other one. So you can take stuff back with you, but not a ton of stuff. So it's more just you get to play with your friend than really have any impact on the world around you. What I want to see is the ability to actually dedicate communities to multiplayer play. So, this would kind of be probably easier said than done, but I would like to see. In practice, this is probably easier said than done. What it would basically mean is dedicated servers, kind of. What you would do is you'd set up a community with your friends, so certain friends can gain access to that community when they're on and you're not, and any of you can go in and help the community go through, play the community in any way you want, take control of different characters, that sort of thing, so that you both can build this community together, and when you're in, you're still working to that common goal. I think that would just be so much more fun for the multiplayer sections, and I think that'd really get a multiplayer following. Number 2, animals and zombie animals. Also wildlife. So this one is kind of all but confirmed in the preview. The preview, I urge you to go check it out. I did not put it in here just because I didn't want to get copyright claimed or anything. You're just watching me play State of Decay 2. But in the actual preview, it's only about a minute and 48 seconds. There actually is a zombie animal, plus there's a wolf that the character of the preview sees. So it's all but kind of confirmed that there's going to be some sort of animal presence in State of Decay 3. What I really want to see is I want to see that interactivity with animals. I want to see zombie animals. I think that'll make cool freaks too. Like you can do some really interesting, like, you know, in the same vein as the screamers and the ferals and the juggernauts, you could do some interesting stuff with that with animals. But also you could hunt for food. I think that would be really cool to hunt like live animals as well, just to like as another food source, maybe another crafting source for your community, especially if, you know, we're to believe from the preview that a lot of this happens in a more wilderness sort of area. That brings us to number 3. Number 3, weather. Okay, so State of K2 is a lot of fun, and it does a lot of really cool simulatory things. There is a day and night cycle. However, there is no real weather change. There's no weather patterns. There's no snow. There's no summer. There's no fall. There's no nothing, none of that. And man, would I love to see that in State of Decay 2. I think it'd be really cool to see some rain and some thunderstorms, even maybe some severe weather, just to kick things up a notch, especially on the keeping your community alive. When you got to deal with that Mother Nature sort of situation, as well as the zombies, and, you know, other things, I think that would be really, really cool. Really cool aspect to add, and I hope we see that. Again, another thing that's kind of confirmed from the preview, because they're in a very snowy area, so we're led to believe there will be some weather aspects to this. Alright, number 4 is a little bit more on the fantasy side. I don't know that we'd be able to see this. I don't even know if they'd have the technology for this or that they're going in this direction. This is more of something that I just want to see, and that's dynamic bases. So, dynamic bases, what's the concept of that? Alright, so right now, in the world of State of Decay 2, if you go in, there are certain areas, certain structures that you can claim as a base, your home for your community. You have to have a minimum person requirement, and you have to have a minimum influence requirement, and then basically you guys move in, and then you can build off that. It gives you a certain amount of slots, large and small, to build certain facilities to allow your community to grow and survive. And it all kind of like fits your strategy, whether you're going to go with a large team or a small team or whatever. Whereas all the other structures are like basically loot structures. They're structures for you to basically head in and try and find stuff in, and then you can also set out outposts in them, which give you these kind of like static bonuses to your community. What I want to see is I want to see, instead of like 5 or 6 places for a base, I want to see it so that you can just make a home out of any structure. Whatever it is, you can claim it as that structure for an influence cost. You need to have a certain, and it'll just like every structure will have a certain amount of people tied to it, a certain influence cost, and then depending on the size of the structure, it will just kind of like procedurally generate the amount of slots and where they are around the structure. So every house, every shed, anything can become a dynamic base, and I think that's just so would make the game so much more replayable and so interesting. The coolest thing about State of Decay 2 is just that infinite replayability to it. Every time I play it, I pick a different base that I haven't inhabited before on that map, and then I try and set up a community there, whatever it takes. Then I play through that until the end, and then I go back in, and I keep repeating that process. With this, you'd have just infinite places to set up, shop, and try and make things work. And finally, number 5, and this is another one of those pipe dreams, but man, this would be awesome. Dynamic NPC communities. What I mean by dynamic NPC communities is, right now in State of Decay 2, there are plenty of NPC communities that's prop up. You can do missions for them and become ingratiated with them, in which case they will give you a static bonus. You can also trade with them, and you can also pick characters from them. You can also become hostile with them, meaning they'll try and shoot you on sight if you get near their home base. And there are a lot of end game levels that contribute to this, that you have to deal with those NPC communities. And this is really cool. It makes you feel like you're in a world. However, there's a couple of things that these communities don't do that I think if they did would be so cool. So first of all, these communities don't go out and scavenge. You'll never see those characters walking around in a house trying to find stuff. They always just sit in that same spot, and it's just assumed that when they're not on camera, they're going finding stuff for their communities. They also never try and raid your base unless it's part of some like predetermined story beat. They never attack you if they're hostile. They just stay in their base, wait for you to come to them, and attack you if you get near them. They don't drive cars. They don't go out. Nothing like that. Which I think in some ways you lose some of the potential here, because the driving system in State of Decay 2 actually isn't that bad. And especially when you have all those auto mechanic shops where you can literally make death machines out of your cars and stuff, how cool would it be to then be, rolling around in your death machine and another community tries to attack you and you end up in this zombie game, in this Mad Max scenario. I think that would be absolutely awesome. So I want to see NPC communities that like you can bump into them scavenging out. Maybe they'll fight you for that stuff. I want to see those NPC communities that are just bandits that just try and attack you at every turn. That are trying to raid your base. Instead of just the zombie attacks, every once in a while you might get attacked by a person. Stuff like that, just dynamic NPC communities where they'll just go out, they'll do stuff, and they'll inhabit the world a little bit more than just being these very static things that you interact with when you need to. So, alright, so that's it. That's 5 things I want to see in State of Decay 3. What do you guys want to see in State of Decay 3? Do you want to see anything in State of Decay 3? Another thing I'd love to ask to anybody out there, if you want to comment below or comment in all the places, do you want State of Decay 3 to be a story-driven game a little bit more like the first State of Decay, or do you want them to keep going down the road of procedural generation like from State of Decay 2? I think everybody out there knows my feelings on it. I love State of Decay 2. I love procedural generation, and they implement it, I think, better than just about every other company out there. So I want to see them double down on that with the Microsoft money that they have now gained, and really see them cut loose with procedural generation and just show the world what you can do and the infinite levels of storytelling that you can make with something like that. So, but what do you guys want to see? You can tell me in the comments below. You can also talk to me on Facebook at OhMyGamingDH, on Twitter at OhMyGaming9. You can join our Discord. The link is in the description below. You can influence this and all of our shows from there. That's also where I ask people questions. I'm going to be asking people questions about future 5 things. And yeah, hopefully you guys like this show. Hopefully you enjoy it. And I'll see you guys next time. As long as you guys keep watching and listening, I'll keep making them.